A new era of engagement banking, brought to you by Backbase.
This interview is sponsored by Backbase and is the second in a four-part series discussing the outlook, opportunities and challenges in the fintech and digital banking landscape and the topical issues and trending news around Australia and the region. Mutual banks have faced unprecedented challenges lately, with the environmental crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic all impacting the way their businesses are run. Consumer habits have also been shifting, while the implementation of open banking has shaken the entire financial industry. The industry reports now show a gloomier forecast for the smaller players. According to the Fintech and Digital Banking 2025 IDC report, it is predicted that by 2025, 80% of banking assets in Australia will still be dominated by the Big Four. Now, against this backdrop, how can mutual banks stay resilient and competitive? Joining me to take us through it is Steve James, CEO of Teachers Mutual, Greg McKenna, CEO of Police Bank, and Iman Ghodosi, Regional VC of Backbase. So with the pandemic serving as a catalyst and hastening the transition into this digital economy and into this digital age, how has this impacted the mutual banking sector? And if we're to look further afield, what will this catalyst make mutual banking look like in the future? Steve, we might start with you if that's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Look, innovation and technology has probably never been more important for our mutual banks at this particular time. Consumers during the COVID period have come to expect, especially better digital services, being able to contact the member digitally. One of the things we do now with our mobile lenders is that instead of going out visiting schools or homes, those type of places, we use Zoom meetings to reach our members. That's one part of the digital presence. The size of our mutual banks allows us to have some agility. Being smaller, we can be more agile and move more quickly into the digital space. And again, we've adopted a digital first strategy alongside with our social responsible strategies going forward to really introduce products like or services. We've got a new bank, Hyper, starting in about a week's time, the end of August, and that'll be a digital only bank as we go forward. What does the future look like? Well, the future looks like really more digital banks entering our space. I think what someone said, that the major four banks still have about 80% of the market going forward, but we see more digital players. We will have to partner with more fintechs as we go forward. We'll have to develop more digital bank offerings. Hyper's the first, but obviously we'll transfer the learnings we get from our digital bank in Hyper back to our current banks like Teachers Mutual Bank, Unibank, Firefighters and Health Professionals Bank. And of course, we'll just have to work as a mutual industry together going forward. So I think agility, working with partners, new partners going forward, and adopting a digital presence is what we'll see in the future.
I'm sure you got many of similar feels to Steve. I'm sure as you're both in the same space. Greg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that what COVID's done is it's reinforced the mutual message. You think about where the 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds are coming through, what their values are. Mutual banking probably hasn't been as important since Police Bank first started in 1964. It's all about the customer. And the technology that we can now access by collaborating with fintechs and other providers really gives us an opportunity to be like Jeff Bezos, focus on the customer, make it all about the customer, build an offering that is relevant to the customer at various life cycle stages, and then make it omnichannel so that they can hit us where they want to. They can. We've got police in their trucks, we've got their shift workers. They haven't just got 9 to 4 or 9 to 5. So we want to build an offering that is able to serve them when and where they want to be served. And that's the beauty of COVID for our industry, is that it's really focused us on the members, and it's really focused us on what we need to do to stay relevant to those members. So that's certainly what we're doing at Police Bank. In terms of how we look in a few years' time, well, we've already started to see some big mergers in our industry, but I don't think that's a necessary requirement for success as a mutual. As Steve said, our size allows us to be agile, and it's that agility built with flexibility. And if we get the right, collaborators and people we work with in the tech space, we've got adaptability as well, so that we can then progress and modify our business as customer demand requires. So I think you'll probably see a few more big mutuals, but you'll see plenty of us in a very healthy ecosystem, whether 10 billion or 2 billion, or even a few smaller ones as well, who are really honing in on what mutuals is about, which is the customer. And that's the beauty of COVID and technology, is it's really given a finer point on what we need to do to be successful.
It does seem to be sort of agility and customer are sort of the two key takeaways there. I might just bring in you, Iman. What are you seeing as you guys at Backbase do work across the sector? What are you seeing over at Backbase in terms of what the future for particularly mutuals will look like?
Yeah, so if we look at it from a technology perspective, the pandemic's really accelerated the digitization of customer experiences by several years. In fact, if you read a study from McKinsey, they even suggested that several years, that leap is around 10 years. So we're effectively, in the last 18 months, we've got to do 10 years worth of work to get up to speed in terms of what the customers are expecting. And really, the winners in this new economy are organisations and banks that can adopt in a new way of engaging their customers and what their customers want. So if we look at our daily lives and what are some of the changes we've experienced over the last couple of years, other industries, if I can draw from that, if we look at, the likes of Airbnb, so they've been able to use technology to effectively disrupt the hotel industry, right? They're the largest accommodation provider in the world, yet they don't, have any properties. They don't own any of the rooms. Or if you look at Uber, the largest taxi company in the world, and they don't own any of the cars. So the technology and the platforms enable this disruption, but it really opens up an opportunity for organisations to take it to the big boys. So, and if you look at what my panelists are saying today is, and I'd certainly agree with you, the operating model and the agility that the mutuals have allow you to take advantage of this opportunity. And this is really a once in a generational opportunity, in my view, around how everything is changing, that our lives are changing, and how we want to interact with our financial institutions. And a recent study by IDC suggested that by 2025, 20% of all retail transactions will be through a mobile.
And in terms of mutuals taking advantage of it, Steve, you were saying at Teachers Mutual, you guys are working on your digital bank launch. Tell us about that process, and particularly what made you decide to launch the digital bank?
Well, pretty much what Iman and Greg have said so far is people do expect a really good digital experience going forward with their bank. And we've been working on this digital offering for about 18 months now, ready to launch at this stage. But really what they want is seamless banking and easy. And given the fact that our membership is essential workers going forward, and they work all different hours of night, whether they be a nurse or, be a teacher, or they're doing the lessons, online or whatever, they expect that experience to be fairly seamless. So what we believe with Hyperbank is that they'll get that seamless. So we're testing Hyper, we're testing some innovation and some new products in the Hyperbank. And as soon as these products become mainstream, they'll then pass through to our other banks, our other mainstream banks, and be able to pick up the technologies we work through. Also, essential workers, really important. They've led the country over the last 18 months with the pandemic. Prior to that, with the firefighters, right throughout New South Wales, they've been at the forefront. So we really have to make it easy for them and develop better easy and banking. The other thing we've noticed with our members, again, being those key workers, essential services, that they're very interested in responsible or socially responsible banking. So they want to make sure when they deposit their funds, we use them the right way, that we have quick and easy service for them, and that we're not investing in, things like, armaments or, tobacco or a whole range of different things, that we're using the money responsibly as we go forward. So that, during 2020, we certainly had, we were one of the leaders with the responsible RIAA going forward institute. So that, investment institute. So we really, our members have said to us, they want to see their money used responsible. So I guess it's two streams, is that digitally they want to have that ease of access, ease of taking loans, doing deposits, and they want the funds being used responsibly as we go forward.
So those are some of the initiatives as well that you've talked about there, Steve, for Teachers Mutual. When it comes to Police Bank, Greg, what initiatives are you guys rolling out there?
Yeah, we've got a similar but slightly nuanced plan to Steve and Teachers. Whereas Steve's got Hiver and take the learnings into TMB, we're rebuilding and looking to rebuild our functionality from the ground up. I thought about, moving Border Bank into a Hiver-style model, but we're still doing the same sort of things that Steve's talking about. You want to be able to build that omnichannel offering where, our police and other members can deal with us and interact with us when and where they want. So we're continuing with that, with mobile apps, and then with PFM on the mobile apps to help people with their budgeting and all that. Because when I go out and I talk to our members, it's really important for them these days to know, they've got Netflix, they've got Disney, they've got all these things coming up, so they can budget. Their rent's going to come out next week, so maybe they don't want to spend that much in the store. That's where we're probably going to head, and that's where we are building our functionality so that we can adapt with that and offer those kind of services. Because banking's changed. We're not selling product, we're offering solutions. And so the flexibility that we have and are building, and Steve's building with the digital offering in our bank at Police Bank and his at Teachers, is so that we can give our members a solution. And that's the fundamental difference between us and the big guys. We're focused on our members and offering them that life cycle and lifestyle solution so that they can hit financial freedom as soon as possible. So that's what we've been working on. The bank's working remotely, so that's working really well. And we're making those adjustments. We've got, we're only a relatively small, $2.5 billion balance sheet. It does 3 million transactions a month, but only 0.1% of those goes through our branches. So we really do have to adapt to what the members want, and that's what we're doing.
So Greg, let's stay on that. In terms of, you are investing in the customers, it is about giving back to them. How do you make sure that as a bank you do sort of deal with the regulatory changes that are coming in, the changes to the entire financial landscape? How do you deal with those and address them in the most timely manner?
Yeah, that's a big question for the customer and banking industry itself, for us at police or teachers or even the big guys. There's a lot of regulatory change. You've basically just got to chunk it off and work through it. This year we've had comprehensive credit reporting. We've got our design and distribution obligations coming up on the 5th of October. We've had CDR come in. We've got an exemption for CDR for 12 months because we're doing a full bank transformation. Many other institutions are walking down the same sort of path. It's simply the fact that you have to prioritise those kind of regulatory changes that are being made. But the beautiful thing about where we are now in 2021 and where we're going to be in 2025 is that automation allows us to handle those challenges that the regulatory changes, throw up for smaller institutions in a really efficient way. And so it's my sense that every single task in a bank, as in many other industries that can be automated, will be automated. So I think from a smaller institution space, we'll be using more automation to help us with our AML and CTF and those kind of things, with keeping on top of changes to legislation and regulation. But the key thing is to use that tech as an enabler for our humans to then interface with the regulators and or with the customers. So I think that's probably the way that we're doing it and the way that we'll continue to do it over the next few years.
And Steve, same question to you. How are you making sure that you are dealing with these regulatory changes and changes to the environment as a whole?
Yeah, look, I agree totally with Greg going forward there that, you know, we're really customer-centric. We look after our members. We have a strong affiliation with our members. And mutuals have always had that. And what that leads to, it leads to strong trust going forward. Now, there are a lot of things coming in the future, not only regulatory things, but you know, we have to probably move into the cloud with our core banking systems. We've got open banking coming. There's a whole range of things that we have to do apart from all the regulatory issues as well. But we're well placed, I think, because we have that trust with our members going forward. We're well placed to be able to meet the demands of the membership as we're going. For you know, if you look at Teachers Mutual Bank in the last 12 months, we've gone through the pandemic. We've kept all our 600 staff fully employed during that period, even though 85 to 95% of the staff are working from home these days. We've been able to grow the business by 19% over the last 12 months. And a lot of that just comes back to the customer loyalty, the fact that they believe in us and we really look after our membership going forward. So I'm sure we'll meet all the challenges, whether regulatory or, you know, better service through, you know, having better online banking services or going into the cloud or whatever.
It certainly seems for both Teachers Mutual and Police Bank that it's that customer journey that is able to sort of enable it. Now, of course, we can't talk about the challenges of the future without talking about buy now, pay later. It's, you know, massive topic here in Australia, particularly as we are sort of looking at consolidation in the space. And we might start with you, Iman. What is Backbase seeing when it does come to the digital challenges and I guess the improvement of payment technology, particularly as it does relate to the mutual banking sector?
But the whole buy now, pay later model is quite interesting, right? So you've got these two-sided business models that are disrupting, you know, both sides of the industry, both from the banking sector, but also from the retail sector, right? So, you know, but what they are doing is they've figured out, it's again the same way Netflix, Disney, Uber has, right? They figured out that they can put the customer in the center, right? And then build channels around them. So, you know, the disruption that they've brought to the table is, you know, they understand intrinsically what the customer wants, but they're also being a traditional, let's call it a lead source for the retailer and bringing revenue through the door into the shopfront. And they've been able to do that in a pretty unique way using technology platforms that allows them to go to market very, very quickly, right? So if you look at, for example, a traditional banking organization, if you're trying to originate a credit card, right, but you know, you've got to go through multiple steps. It'll take days before the card arrives in the hands of the customer and for the customer to go or spend. Whereas with, you know, buy now, pay later, using what we've just spoken about around digital transformation and technologies as the enabler, those 30 or 40 steps that will take a normal bank is now taking 5 steps, and it takes a matter of minutes before the app is available on a virtual card on a mobile device for the end customer to make the expenditure.
Now, Steve, you mentioned more fintechs will be coming into the space, and there'll obviously have to be some sort of relationship, I guess, with them. How are you dealing with the digital challenges presented by, say, the buy now, pay later sector or even other fintechs?
Yeah, it's interesting for us as we go forward because buy now, pay later services present some ethical issues for us going forward because they are. There's no credit checks done on those type of services going forward. In saying that, you know, we don't want to overcommit our members going forward. So if we enter buy now, pay later scene going forward, then we have to get around some of those ethical issues and make sure we're not overcommitting our members. That's part of the mutual philosophy. But at the end of the day, there's evolving needs. The members have evolving needs. And if these are the needs that members have long term, then we will certainly have to look at those sort of products and offer those type of services long term as well, but in an ethical way, so that we do not overcommit, especially younger members going forward.
And Greg?
Yeah, similar thing. I think that one of the key compacts that we have as mutuals between ourselves as an organisation and them is that we will put them first and look after their financial well-being. So the buy now pay later scheme, what it does is two things. It tells us that sometimes you've got to step back from banking to look at how changes can be made, and the flexibility that working with technology is going to do will offer that to us. So we need to abstract ourselves from the regulatory framework sometimes to see if there are other opportunities. And the second is that what does that tell you? It tells you that there's an evolving psyche of the younger generation coming through, and that we need to adapt. So whether it's buy now, pay later, or what the next iteration happens to be, as long as we continue to focus on the customer, Afterpay, Zip, those kind of people, they've got that space now. What could we do as an organisation to do that? Now, we'd have to do it differently, and we would still do the credit checks and all that kind of thing. But we can offer, a virtual credit card where you pick 4 payments or 6 payments or something like that. But because we know our members, Steve knows his members, we know our members at Police Bank, we can do that because we've got their data and we've got their details. So it's a different way of looking at what's essentially the same kind of thing, but using technology in our relationship with our members. So I think it's exciting to see all these changes and our ability to be agile enough to adapt to them. And, I look forward to how things are going to be over the next 5 or 10 years.
It certainly does seem, both Teachers Mutual and Police Bank are addressing these challenges driven by the customer as well. It is very much about that customer focus. So we have covered a lot of ground. I'm just going to ask Iman, you guys have a global perspective, and particularly in your role, the Asia Pacific perspective in digital banking. Where is Australia placed when it comes to that? What are some of the lessons that we can learn from other regions around the world?
Yeah, look, for us, digital banking is it's going beyond just digitizing products and services, right? You got to really transform the entire bank, right? From organizational agility, simplification, brand equity, and overall customer experiences, which is some of the topics we've spoken about today. At Backbase, we fundamentally believe you've got to build banks that people love, and that's the ethos of our company. And we do that in 4 ways, and we help our customers in four different ways. The first one is delighting the customer. So delight your end customer. We've spoken a lot about that today, and that for mutuals, that comes very natural because they are very different to traditional banks. They're for the members. They understand their members a lot better. And it's that whole anytime, anywhere access and a very hyper-personalised, engagement that you have with your customer and your member. The second part of that is actually empowering the employees inside the bank, right? So one of the reasons why platforms like Uber work really, really well is because on that platform, both the customer and the driver are interacting with each other in a live sense, and everybody sees what's going on. So empowering your employees inside the bank to be able to service your customers is a big, big key part of being successful in the new world. The third one is orchestrating value, right? And what I mean by that is the ability to integrate, for example, with other fintechs, right? There are plenty of good solutions out there, especially around compliance, that will address the compliance needs of the banks. All right. So the ability to bring that in the bank, consume that, and have that be part of the overall stack is quite important in the new era. And then lastly, you've got to digitize your operations, right? And again, I spoke a little bit about this earlier. If you think about a loan origination journey or a credit card origination journey, In the old incumbent platforms, it could take you 30 steps and it'll take you days. The new kids on the block, if you take the buy now, pay laters or some of the digital banks, they do it in the matter of 5 or 6 steps and in a matter of minutes. So how do we digitize that entire operation? The only thing I would say on terms of digitization and automating the process is an interesting quote I saw from the Harvard Business Review. You can't automate relationships. You can only automate processes. So from a lessons learned, think about that. You got to put the customer in the center of everything that you do, and you got to empower your employees to be able to serve that customer in the most efficient manner. And as you go through automating processes and digitizing your operations, keep that in mind. Keep the customer in mind, because you cannot automate a relationship.
I think that's a really great point to end on, and certainly it's been sort of, I guess, the theme of this conversation. It is all about the customer and what we can do for them going forward. So Steve James, CEO of Teachers Mutual, Greg McKenna, CEO of Police Bank, and Iman Ghodosi, Regional Vice President of Backbase. Thank you so much for joining me on this panel today.